And we're live.
All right, everybody, welcome to the Omnic Lab. We are a podcast that focuses on the game of Overwatch, but specifically our show delves into the strategies inside of the game. We learn in a lab format, like with trial and error and scientific method. So sometimes things get a little crazy. Sometimes they don't always work, but we're learning with you in the lab, and we brew up those team comp strategies with you, stir up some tips to play better, and maybe even help you, the listener, be equipped with some instruments to gain that strategic edge. I'm your host, Rob May. This is episode number 38. We are talking team building and strategies, and joining me is Andres Gomez. What's up, Andres? What's going on?
What's up, Rob? Finally got the episode going today. We had a bunch of technical difficulties. I really like when you say the trial and error part in the intro, because when we are live, it really is trial and error sometimes.
Oh, yeah.
We have so much stuff
It
going
really
on.
does.
Like getting show notes together, talking about stuff in the Discord, and just like settings failing here and there, trying to manage all of the Discord and OBS and streaming stuff. Anyway, we're here and
Absolutely.
we're live. So that's what matters.
That's the first step, is that we are here and we are recording. So I know that a lot of you guys last week gave me some flack for the intro of saying, hey, we're going to talk about settings in Sombra. And we just never got to the settings. And Andres is like, well, yeah, we don't have time. So this week we're going to make time. We're going to start with settings, and then we're going to move into something that Andres and I have been doing. Andres has been building and actually going through the dross of practicing and doing his team building and team learning activities with his 6 stack. And I am actually working on building a team of myself. So we want to talk about maximizing settings that are potentially underutilized or just glazed over for your in-game settings, and a few out-of-game settings that have to do with your mouse. And we're going to talk about our experiences in building the Overwatch teams that we are trying to make or currently working with, depending on who you talk to, myself or others. And then we want to inform you with some cool stuff that we're learning in the aspect of the game to provide insight on those things. Now, the other thing that we'd like to mention is that there's a really cool news piece with the Chinese lunar calendar New Year that has started on the 24th. I actually don't have a closing date on this. I actually need to look this up while we're talking about it.
I believe it's 3 weeks. I don't know the exact date of when it would end up, but they did say it's going to last for about 3 weeks every year.
Yep. Okay. So before we get into the news piece, we'll talk about some other stuff about the news piece, and then I will reconnect with the date later. So let's talk about our competitive mode update. Andres, why don't you kick us off with how you've been doing? Where you're climbing? Are you tanking? Are you kind of just floating? How's ranked been?
So far so good. I tanked a bunch of rank last week. I've mentioned it before in the show how I felt like I was a little rusty coming back from the holidays, and effectively tanked a bunch of rank the first 2 weeks. We were kind of like pulling our hairs out with the team, but we stuck together, and we were climbing again last week and this week. I finally pulled myself up like 250 rank. I'm almost back to diamond again, which makes me super sad because I was like halfway to masters, then fell all the way like halfway to platinum, and then now I'm like almost at diamond again. So it's been a really deep roller coaster of rises and falls. But in other good news though, other than comp, I had a very generous invite from one of our listeners, Anthony. He reached out. He lives around the area, and he was like, hey, would you ever want to go out for dinner with me and my wife? And I took him out on it. I'm glad I did. It was really, really good. I had a really fun time. We went over to Battle and Brew over here, which is a gaming like bar restaurant. It has a bunch of computers and consoles and a bunch of other stuff. Shout out to him for taking me out on a lovely date. That was really, really something. Thanks, dude. And yeah, that's pretty much what I've been up to. How about you?
That sounds awesome, man. So props to him. Thanks for kicking it out. That would have been sweet. For me, I have been up and down roller coastering quite a bit. I've been monitoring my stats though on well, let me back up. Not stats. I've been monitoring the progress and like win lost, how much, that type of thing. just on paper. And I think overall, if I pull up in this paper, I had basically 4 sessions this last week. First session went negative 22 SR after 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 games. So that was pretty tilting. I went 2, 5, and 1 after 9 games, or I guess it's 8 games. Sorry, bad math. Lost 22, and then the next day I went 4 and 2 and gained 82, and then the next day we went 3, 2 and 1 and I got 22, and then last night we went 0 and 3 and just quit. I was just not enjoying the game, and I lost 64 for that, which is so aggravating. So basically, if you're keeping track on your calculators, boys and girls, I'm basically like about 18 positive this week overall, which is kind of sad, but I'm sitting at 2285 right now, and I got all the way back up to 23. I think my peak was at 2350. Yeah. Or 2375 was my peak, and then I dropped back down to 2350 and got back up to it, and then dropped
close
again.
to that platinum over there. Gotta get the team together. We'll get to that later this episode, and how to get the team together to push those little numbers and get to your rank, to desired rank.
Absolutely. So that's what I've been up to. Let's get to thanking our new patrons and our old patrons that are diamond level. So first and foremost, if you guys are at the platinum level, that is $2.50 per content item, then you are qualified for a VOD submission. VODs are just basically videos on demand, is what VOD stands for. It's kind of just like a recording of one of your games. We prefer, obviously, loss videos, because loss videos help us the most with those VOD reviews, especially for Andres' end. It's because clearly you will have something wrong with the game if you lost. So it's always helpful to have for a VOD submission. And you can do those and send them over. And we have a link in the show notes on our website, not in the iTunes show notes or in the podcast show notes. So you have to go to the website to find out where that link is, or you can just log on to our YouTube. Special thanks to Diamond Level patrons, Mr. RC Crispy, who has also been doing a lot of Diablo this week and helping out some of those people that want to do something a little bit more than just Overwatch. He is at CrispyRCER on Twitter and twitch.tv/RCCrispy. We have A Bit Like Magic, who is our financial champion as well. He just goes by Magic, but A Bit Like Magic is his Twitter handle. And I will re-mention the last week we got Ben W. as a new Diamond Scientist, and we have a new Diamond Scientist this week. On top of that, Mr. Devin P. I will be contacting both of you gentlemen with some information on a personal email that we need some info from you. What do you want to promote on the show? We're super glad to have you guys on the show. And once that stuff processes, we will get you right in on the same perks that these guys can take advantage of.
Absolutely.
And
thanks so much, guys.
New patrons this week.
Yeah, we got a couple new guys joining the team as well. Actually, 8 of them, which is mind-blowing. I'm super happy about this. We got Pierre Tuan.
This is 9, sorry.
Oh, 9. Woo! Even
I
more.
forgot to count Devin.
It's a party in here. All right. Pierre
Yeah.
Tuan V. We also got Daniel Funconfusion. We got Jeffrey F. We got Joachim S.
Joachim
S. We got Dallas A. Patrick W. Tim S. We got Devin P., which you already mentioned, our new Diamond Scientist, and Ben W., which you also already mentioned, our Diamond Scientist. Thanks so much, guys. You guys are super awesome. Apologies if I butcher your name, as I usually do with our patron names. But I'm really glad you guys are part of the team.
Yeah, we can't believe how much this has grown. Like, we got really excited about the new year, mentioned a little bit about the Patreon, patreon.com/OmnicLab, where you guys can just like support the show. If you want to look up more info, you can go there. But it's been phenomenal, the amount of feedback you guys have been giving us through that. Just the financial support of making the dream work for us is just something that we never underestimate. It's just wonderful, and you guys are just continually showing up, and we get new people all the time. Like 9 new people in 1 week is just ridiculous. Like, I can't believe that. It doesn't matter if it's like 50 cents or it's $10. It's just amazing that we're getting a constant influx like this. But so the new year, we have the Chinese Lunar Calendar New Year in Overwatch. Andres, what are your immediate reactions as I look up the concrete dates for this?
Love it. I'm in love with this event. One of my favorites so far, for sure. You guys know my opinion about the Christmas one. I wasn't like particularly super excited about it. I'm not particularly fond of like having a Christmas event in every game out there. But the Lunar Year is a little more refreshing to me. I guess is not as common as Christmas, and not to mention that, but like the aesthetics of it are so cool. I love all of the new skins. I love kind of like the whole theme that's going around it. And more importantly, I am in love with the new brawl. The new brawl is so fun, so fun that I wish it was almost like a permanent game mode, but we got a little developer update from Jeff explaining the capture the flag. I'm sure he anticipated a lot of people like me who are in love with the game mode and are like, "Hey Jeff, why is this not like a game mode?" And he was like, "Guys, I get it. It is fun, but here's our opinions, and we can touch on it a little more. But I want to get your opinion on the skins and all that stuff."
Okay, so this week, I found the dates, guys. We got it. So it's February. It's January 24th, which is basically the day that we are recording this. Is the day after the event has launched. And in the United States servers, I might add, because I found it funny that the 24th was the start date, even on the Chinese announcement, and the people in our time zone didn't get it till 25th, so that's funny. But it will extend until February 13th. So we have quite a while for you guys to go rack up them loot boxes if you're free to play after you've already purchased the game. But the reason I want to spend a little bit more time on the skins, especially, maybe not the rest of the stuff, but just skins, is that each of the skins are linked, at least on the legendary side, are linked with something culturally sound. So I love this. So Andres has already agreed to let me do some research on this. I was doing this at school today because I had light only 2 classes, and they were like 1st and 6th. So I got to read up on one of the most famous Chinese myths, which is Journey into the West. It's Chinese mythology and literature. It's just one of the most classic things you can get. They have comic book versions. They've even done movies, and I've watched a few of them. And even when I went to China, I had some of my students teaching me and doing translation projects on some of their lore because they were really into it.
Oh, that's awesome.
So this is really cool stuff. So let's start with May. May is the easiest one to break down on one of them, and one of the more complex ones first. So let's start with May. May is the poster child of the event, obviously, because of all of the backlash. Not only did May get a great skin, Chinese New Year themed.
She got 2 great skins.
She got 2. That's right. And they
were
are
like,
just
all right,
different
guys,
enough in the color palette.
Just to make up for last time, here's 2 legendary base skins that look really good.
And they are dope. They look so
good,
dope. Like these look really good. So Andres, the purple one, there's a white and purple, and then there's a red one. The red one is like the typical red packet that people get on Chinese New Year that is filled with money. They do something similar to this in Japan, but it's only New Year's Day. But during Chinese New Year, you get these little packets. They're filled with sometimes random things of money, depending on who's giving it to you. And if it's your parents or your grandparents, it's usually a lot of money. And this is kind of like their version of New Year's mixed with what we'd kind of understand Christmas to be, but it's usually just money-centric and food and family. It's really cool.
I always think that money is the best gift, because then you can get whatever you want, rather than getting like the same old socks or the ugly sweater you get every year.
Same old socks. So I love the red packet because I found out in Japan it's called pochi bag, but they only do it on Christmas or on New Year's Day. So it's a very different thing. And I didn't do a whole lot of research on the packets itself, but I did a lot of research on the Journey into the West and some of the Korean stuff that we have with Ana and Diva. So with May, the purple and white skin is actually, I'm going to butcher this in Chinese, so you'll have to forgive me. I know there's a lot of people that are studying Mandarin right now, so don't.
Oh, don't worry. I'm not going to judge you.
It's called Changge, I think is how you say it. And Changge is a Chinese lunar goddess of the moon. And funny that you that we were mentioning this, because there are 4 heroes that are represented in the story of Journey to the West. There's the main hero, who is arguably who Zenyatta is represented, and his name is Shenzong, which is basically just a monk who is trying to rescue and do some cool stuff for the story. He's trying to rescue the ancient Buddhist sutras and return them from India to the Buddha. And then you have Roadhog, who is actually
the piggy.
Zhubaji, or basically piggy.
Is that what it means?
Yeah, it basically means pig.
Oh, that's hilarious. That's awesome.
So it's kind of like an official name because he used to be one of the guardians in heaven, or in the cloud kingdom, depending on how you translate it. And Roadhog was banished because he got Piggy was banished because he got, in his previous general role, was a little too friendly with Changi, which is basically the person that Mei was purple skinned as. So he flirts a little bit too much and gets a little bit too friendly with this person. And so the king of heaven banishes him out of heaven and kicks him out.
Oh,
and
gotcha.
He's known for being all into gluttony and women. And that's just like his thing. And apparently that fits Roadhog really well because he looks like a pig after he did all of this great things to help get to the Enlightenment travel with Zenyatta or Shenzong. And even though he was doing a good thing, he was filled with motives for gluttony and women in the whole midst of the story, and so he got transformed into a pig to get his reward, which I thought was really, really funny.
Gotcha. The pig looks really cool. It's one of my favorite Roadhog skins now for sure, and it's creepy too. It's like an eerie pig, like it's kind of scary.
It's very scary, yeah.
Yeah.
And he has a rake for a hook. It's like a rake.
Yeah, it looks like it could be like a Halloween movie or something.
Yeah, and it has like a little beacon Chinese symbol on it, which I thought was really neat. So moving along, we don't want to belabor this too much, but we have Winston, who is represented as Sun Wukong, and Sun Wukong is also in Japanese is Son Goku, which you might
that's cool.
recognize from Dragon Ball Z. Dragon Ball Z is actually a parody and a fighting version of the ancient Chinese myth, because a lot of ancient Chinese stuff is also divulged into Japanese myth, but there's lots of variant, and obviously the language is slightly different. But Son Goku, Son Wukong, and Wukong is also a hero in League of Legends, if you're curious, and also Wukong is represented in the Hi-Rez Studios game called Smite.
Yeah,
but
I feel like this whole lore like extends through a bunch of games and stories. There's definitely influenced a lot of games before.
So Sun Wukong is kind of the poster child for this story. Across the world, he's a more famous one. He's basically a monkey born out of a stone, turns into a stone monkey. He's kind of the monkey king of his people, goes in to fight heaven. He's all about fighting and stuff. It's just very similar. If you think Dragon Ball Z, you're kind of on the right track. Okay. Then we have Mr. Reinhardt, who Reinhardt represents Sha Wujing. And Sha Wujing is also translated as Friar Sandy. That's why his skin name is called Sandy. And he's a very quiet comic relief character that is really, really powerful Buddhist monk. So that's kind of the synopsis.
Really
of
powerful. Like that skin is one of my favorite Reinhardt skins. Oh, he's so cool.
He makes me want to play Reinhardt, and that's saying something. Okay, and then moving along, the last one is Diva, which has nothing to do with Chinese New Year and everything to do with traditional hanbok, which is a Korean dress that she's wearing. So it's really cool because they actually celebrate their own thing around Lunar Festival, but it's not anything to do with the Chinese New Year, but it happens around the same time. So I thought that was really neat to give some love to our Korean.
I love how she looks all angry wearing the dress too. She's just standing on top of the mech with this angry look.
Forum post on Blizzard and Reddit today, and they were saying that they're like, man, I remember having to wear that as a kid for ceremonies and weddings and stuff, and it's like that thing was a pain to keep on and a pain to get on and a pain to get off. So everything about that dress is a pain. So no wonder Diva looks so upset wearing it.
They even nailed the expression. There you go, Blizzard. Way to do your research.
Yep. All right, and then last up we have Ana. So we have a few more epics. I'll list them off. We have Ana, Junkrat, Bastion, Mercy, Tracer, Symmetra. All of them are relatively just kind of roses and happy New Year's-y golden trim or golden focused skins. But Ana is the only one that is like looks like basically a white robe with Skittles on it.
Okay, we do have to address Hannah because there was a big discussion in our Discord about it and how creepy she looked. I've already seen like a couple memes. I think you were the one who posted this one, that it was when you sleep a nano boosted Genji with your sleep dart, and then he has a bunch of like the Anna faces with that mask just like spammed on it. That was pretty funny.
Okay, so I read up on this one right before the show. This is called Hahoe Tell, and it's basically a traditional Korean masks that are worn during a specific ceremony that is called Hahoe Pyolishin Gutal Nori. And yes, I did butcher that as best as I could. So, basically, there are 12. The story is there's 12 masks. This guy is supposed to, like, the gods. See, the legend is that this guy has to. His name is Her. He has a dream to protect the deity and to construct masks, but they told him that he has to make them in private and completely unseen by any other being to create masks for deity. So he gets almost finished, and a young woman who fell in love with him and was impatient and didn't see him for a while peeped through a hole in his room while he was finishing the last mask, and they condemned him and killed him. So she got her lover killed because she was impatient. So it's a story of impatience. But all of the 12 masks have different representations of different kinds of deities, like scholars and old women and things like that. And so there is one mask that has no chin, or it's flat. It's not rounded. And that is not the one that Anna is using. But Anna has one that looks like two different ones that's kind of fused. And so it's a very traditional robe as well as traditional celebration mask for dance in Korea. So if you guys are wondering what that is about, there you go.
I didn't see a whole. I actually like it. I think it's a scare tactic. You know, you just pull her out and you scare the enemy team and throw them off their game. Like Symphony Walrus says on the chat. He says the new Anna skin plus the highlight intro, it just equals nightmares. I agree with you.
Equals nightmares. That's right. Anna plus Korean mask equals nightmares for years. So there you go. If you guys are curious on other stuff, we'll get into Capture Flag here in a second, but there's 3 emotes and 3 highlight intros that are all epic. There's no legendary ones this round. So Diva May and Junkrat have some funny emotes, and then the highlight intros, the Mercy one with Fortune is amazing, by the way. Roadhog is like passed out from eating too much baozi, which is like a steamed pork bun roll. And then Tracer has a really cool like Chinese New Year dragon that she pops out of. So all of those are really, really cool highlight intros.
Yeah, really cool stuff.
Let's move on to the brawl. Andres, did you get a chance to run through some CTF on Lijiang?
I actually did. I played like 7 or 8 games yesterday. I wanted to play more actually. I was really into it and I was really exploring the game. I thought that it would have been a little more hectic and that it would have been easier to take the flag, but it actually had a lot of strategy to it, and definitely the heroes that were highlighted in this type of brawl were a little different than your usual heroes. I feel like Winston, Soldier 76 had a really good chance. Tracer, surprisingly, was not that good because you had to actually, step on the flag and stay on it to get it. And pushing off Tracer off the point was actually fairly easy. It was actually better to have a more beefy mobile hero like Winston and Soldier, which you could just sprint after he got it and like get away. What were your first impressions with the brawl?
My first impressions were basically like just turret up. Play Symmetra, play Torbjorn, and win your loot boxes, and you can get out. That's what I did.
I feel like that's what a lot of people are doing. Definitely Symmetra and Torbjorn were like insta picks in a lot of my games just to defend the flag. We just bombarded with turrets all over the place and have your Symmetra and Torb stay back, and they could usually hold out pretty well.
A lot of Mei, a lot of Lucio. And honestly, we had some of the fastest games where I had a Lucio Sombra and a Diva frontline. And then we had a backline hero like either Widowmaker or Soldier or McCree, kind of just in the mid game, and sometimes Roadhog. And then we just had me and my friend and yours in the Discord, Super Val. She was playing Symmetra. I was on Torbjorn, and we swept. It was probably a 4-minute game. It was super fast. Sombra would just sneak in, get in there. She would be walking the flag back. Their whole team would follow her after they had wiped the 2 turret heroes. And after she came back to cap, basically we left Bus Driver, who is another one of our patrons, sitting on their point. So as soon as she capped, Bus Driver picked up the second one and ran it all the way back to base, and then Sombra stealthed back and picked up the third one and then ran it back to base. It was like boom, boom, boom.
Oh my
Game
god,
over.
that sounds really fast. All of mine lasted a little longer. Definitely not. There wasn't one that was that fast. I did notice though,
Crazy.
and Jeff did mention this in his developer update about it. How after there's a team wipe, it's almost like a guaranteed capture. If you, especially if you wipe the team on their side,
Right.
it's just like they get the flag, and there's just no way that you can catch up with the 5-second respawn. And especially high mobility heroes like soldiers that can just sprint away, or even Sombra,
Yeah.
you can just become invisible and like run really fast with it. So it was really centered around that team fight. You really had to win it, and it wasn't the same if you waited for the enemy team to come to your side and then wiped it, unless you had a guy already kind of like positioned and ready to take it. Because if you waited for the defense and then try to get it, like you wouldn't just have enough time to get to the flag, and the team would already respond. So definitely a lot of strategy there, and it was a very refreshing game mode where I didn't feel like I was playing like just like a for funsies kind of thing, like I felt with the May Brawl. When I was playing the May Brawl, I was just like,
Yeah.
this is just kind of like a for funsies. I want to play it a couple of times and I'm kind of done with it. But with this one, it was very engaging. I was like, oh, it felt like some of the other game modes where I was like thinking about new strategies and how your team could approach it.
Mhm.
And I was like, oh man, I want to play it again. I want to play it again. It was very, very entertaining.
This is really fun. Yeah, we actually got the achievement for that triple cap that I was telling you about. We got that little achievement spray for that game, so it was a lot of fun getting to that sweet dragon spray. But I want to say one thing real quick about the brawl that has basically nothing to do with it. But we had a highly toxic player in one of my games, and I don't understand that. Like, for starters, how do you have a toxic behavior in a capture the flag thing that's literally just for loot boxes and achievements? Like, it doesn't really matter, right? Most of the games end in a draw. You're just goofing around. It's having fun, whatever. This guy literally was playing 90% of the game typing in chat, like just anything and everything toxic. And it brought up an interesting topic within our Discord community that Val kind of spearheaded because she was playing, obviously, the Symmetra with me when I was playing the Torbjorn and was a part of it. And so everyone in the game reported it. And he said something that is honestly what the community is saying is like, that's fine. You can report me. It won't matter because Blizzard doesn't do anything against people that are toxic. Blizzard does stuff against people who are cheating. And then a lot of people were like really tilted in the chat after he said something like that. So I know Blizzard employees, at least one of them, is listening to this show because we've tweeted at her and she's shown interest in the show. But we wanted to express that in our venue, at least I did, that maybe Blizzard can maybe give us some insight into how they're dealing with toxic players, because I don't know what they're doing. This guy is just spewing his own personal opinion on what he thinks Blizzard will do with toxic players. I haven't really had that much. I mean, obviously you get a toxic player every once in a while. Andres, what's your experience with toxic people? Just as a quick side note before we get into the main topic.
It's hard to say. I have found definitely my fair share of toxic people in this game, and I just think it's inevitable in a game that brings out the passions in you. And some people just, they're not as used to dealing with other people. Sometimes they don't have regards for how other people feel, and because they're alone in their house, and sometimes they don't really think about the consequences that their words or their behavior can have on someone else, or even the consequences that it can have on themselves. Sometimes people think that when they bash on somebody else, they won an argument, or when they make somebody feel bad, like they somehow feel superior or feel better about themselves. Right. I don't know. But at the end of the day, toxic players are hurting themselves as much as they're hurting the community. They're just driving themselves away from potential playing friends, from maybe even winning games because of the attitude that they put on their team and the stress that
Very
they bring
true.
out on all these people. And it's a very complicated subject. I'm gonna kind of play devil's advocate for Blizzard over here because I'm pretty sure that this is a big concern on their part. I'm pretty sure that if
Yeah.
they could make this game toxicity free, like they would do it immediately. But like anyone who has worked with people knows, people are complicated and needy,
It's
and
true.
people managing a large group of people is very complicated. It would be nice to hear about Blizzard and what they're doing to maybe improve in this area. I know that right now there's very limited things that you can do aside from reporting them if they're being especially obnoxious or they're being outright offensive. But aside from that, I do think it takes like many reports for them to really like take action on it. It has to be like a bulk of people that have been
Mhm.
like, hey, this guy is being like way too much. Pay attention to him, and then
Well,
they'll review it or something.
yeah,
I'm not necessarily sure how that works, which would be nice to know, like how kind of like that system works. But again, because it's people,
sure.
a lot of people might abuse this sort of thing. That's kind of my opinion. But at the end of the day,
Yep.
the only person you have control of is yourself. So that's who you should be focusing on. I know that's kind of like the cookie cutter answer, but really, there's not much more you can do.
There is a certain level of toxicity being its own just desserts because people don't want to group with you, people don't want to play with you, you're going to tank your rank. There is a immediate feedback to what you're doing, and it's maybe not obvious to that person, but they are definitely, their toxicity is hurting themselves. So
Like,
let's
yeah,
just table that.
honestly,
I think it's a good talk though.
yeah, to finish it off, I was gonna say, if you
Go
are
ahead.
being a toxic player, the only person that you're hurting at the end is yourself. You're shutting down doors. You're closing down opportunities for yourself. You are, worst of all, you are now playing a game in the worst mood. You are totally missing the point of playing Overwatch if you are yelling at other people, telling other people what to do, and thinking that other people are the source of your problems. If you're this kind of person, just as a general life advice, like don't
Yeah.
don't do it. You're gonna hurt yourself. You're gonna get much further if you are the opposite of that.
Absolutely. So let's get into the main topic. Let's get into some settings. This is the most boring thing I can think of, but um, I don't know a lot of players that necessarily utilize the settings. I know that we've getting like mixed things from people. Like I feel like the only people that want to know about this are asking, and the people that don't want to know about this are just staying quiet. So hopefully this is somewhat half seas of the show is something that you're interested in today, or at least a third of the show if you didn't like the skin section as well. Maybe you'll enjoy the part where we're talking about team building today. But we wanted to pack in quite a few stuff to this episode and maybe go a little longer than normal, which is why we were starting to move our show over to Wednesday mornings. We'll make another announcement at the end of the show, but we're going to try to work on doing Wednesday mornings at 9 instead of the normal Tuesdays because it works really, really well for me unless we have new guests. So, Andres, you have a little disclaimer about video settings here, so I'm going to turn it over to you.
Yes, my little disclaimer here is, first of all, this is one of the driest topics we're probably ever going to talk about in the show, but it is part of the game, and it does have an effect on your performance, so might as well touch on it a little bit, and you guys can let us know how we do. But my little disclaimer here is also settings are something that there's not like one setting that you can universally give out to everyone and the magic will happen. So we're just gonna give you like a quick rundown on which ones are the ones that might affect your gameplay the most and why. And then it's up to you to kind of like play around with them and find your happy medium, the place where you're the most comfortable with, and hopefully at least will help you gain a little more consistency out of your system, or at least understand what some of these settings out there in the back. Because I know that some of them are not very intuitive or obvious. And with that, let's get into it. All right, do you want to kick this off or you want to kick it off?
Sure. So another thing to go with the disclaimer is we have linked a video by Tempo Storm, one of their players, that I have used for a very heavy load of, especially on the video and the sound section of this thing. We're basically going to break it into video, sound, controls, and that's it. So the video section and the sound section that I know a little bit less about, I'm relying pretty heavily on Tempo Storm's video here that we're going to be linking. So please go check that out. I literally just opened it up and changed all my settings with that thing running in my ears. It was a lot of help, and it kind of helped me kind of get kind of the layman's understanding. Now, this is, by warning, it's going to be very competitive focused. So this guy has very strong opinions on some things. And you have to remember, sometimes you got to take a step back and remember, I'm a consumer of this game. I'm never going pro. I want my game to look pretty, so I'm going to change this a little bit, okay? So I talked a little bit about that with some of our patrons, and I'm changing my settings around with my new computer. I'm like, you know what? I can be competitive, or I can make my game look look a little bit prettier and still be competitive. So the first thing is that a lot of the video settings are to reduce input lag. That is basically the main thing. If you want more information about input lag, I suggest you look up and read up on it.
Well,
input lag is a very
let's talk about it for a
loaded
second.
thing, unless Andres... Okay. Andres, go ahead and talk to us about what input lag means.
I'm not gonna take a long time, and it's gonna, like I said, it's a dry topic, but might as well touch on it since it's the main culprit of why some of these settings are important. Basically, input lag, it refers to the time in between when you move your mouse or you make an action and the time when you see it happen on your actual screen. There's a small delay. Many things can affect this, including your server ping and stuff, but they are local settings that have a big impact on your input lag. And normally this is not super noticeable. If you just picked up the game and you've been playing for a while, you might be thinking like, what are you talking about input lag? I've never really felt this. And it's a small delay, and it's not super noticeable, but once you start playing with it and you see how it affects it, especially if you've been playing the game for a while, it can make a huge difference in how responsive it feels and how snappy. The best way I can describe it is, if you're currently playing with a high input lag, it almost feels like the game is underwater. Like, you'll move your mouse and there's just a small little delay. You can feel like things are sluggish almost a little bit on the screen. And like I've said, if you've never played around with it, you might not even know what I'm talking about. But the second you reduce your input lag, everything starts feeling a little snappier, a lot more responsive, like things are like right there when you want them to be there. And this can help a lot in your consistency. If you're used to like a lot of input lag, your shots might actually vary a little bit. The distance that you measure might not be incredibly accurate. And more important than that, your timing might be a little bit off. Of course, you can get used to playing with high input lag and still be really good with this, but at the end of the day, you kind of want to like reduce a lot of these variables, especially if you want to be highly competitive. And yeah, this is basically the basic rundown of this.
Now, how do you reduce your input lag? Well, I'm glad you asked, because that's basically what this whole section is about, is reducing input lag. So the first thing is we want you to limit the FPS button. So if you go under there and you find limit FPS, it'll either say custom, on, off, something like that, okay? So you want to change it to custom, and then find about where your computer normally fits if it's not limited. So you have the display mode. You check it so that you can see your FPS while you're playing, kind of glance at it from time to time, see where your highs are, where your lows are. Go to whatever your highs are, and at least set it at that, and maybe go a little bit higher so that you can get a little bit more frames. So if I run about 150 frames a second, I can run it up to, maybe 180 or 200, depending on how much of a buffer you want to give yourself. I like to give it a little bit of a lower buff, because anything above 160 to me seems a little overkill. So I just put it at like 180, 185, and I'm like, hey, if I get 185, great. If not, I don't think my computer runs it that way anyways with the ping, so that's fine. So what it actually does is, for whatever reason, if you limit the FPS to the custom section and just determine it and cap it somewhere, it somehow reduces the input lag. And there's no really real good way to describe it, supposedly, from what the Tempo Storm video was saying. So just cap it. It's easy. It's fast. And it'll reduce a little bit of your input lag for you.
I think in a way it helps reduces like unnecessary loads when you cap your FPSs. Your computer knows it doesn't have to go past that.
It's working less hard.
It kind of stays around like the optimal range. But there is one thing to be said, and it's that you want as many FPSs as you can get. I don't know like the technical reason of why this happens, especially in Overwatch, but it just so happens that the more FPSs you can squeeze out, the lower input lag you end up having. It's kind of like an inverse relationship there that I found. So you normally want to run it as high as you can. Lowering certain settings in the advanced section can help a lot with this. We'll get to those in a second. But let's move on to the next one, because I think that the next one is one of
Yeah,
the
you take this one.
main things that can reduce your input lag.
Yeah, this is the big one.
Yeah,
Andres, go ahead.
There's this option called VSync and triple buffering, but especially VSync. VSync is a technology that was developed a while ago that basically synchronizes your FPSs from your computer that your graphics card is outputting versus the refresh rate of your monitor. Not to get too technical, every monitor out there has a refresh rate. The higher the refresh rate, the smoother images looks, because you're just watching more frames per second. Normally, a while back, like 60 hertz monitors, which are basically monitors that refresh 60 times every second, were like the common ground. Nowadays, for gaming, 144 hertz monitors are kind of like the new thing, and the new thing that people are raving about. If you haven't had a chance to play with 144 hertz monitor, I definitely encourage you to go out and try it. Go to a friend, go to like a, I don't know, internet cafe or something where they have gaming, and try it out, see it for yourself, see if it actually makes a difference. I think most people agree that it does. It looks a lot smoother. You can see things a lot better. But without getting too much into monitors, especially for monitors who have a lower refresh rate, like 60 hertz. So if you're playing with just like your average office monitor or desktop monitor, and your refresh rate is not as big, and your graphics card instead is outputting like 140 or 180 FPSs, or sometimes it can be even lower. Maybe it's 80 FPSs, which I think is more noticeable when the difference is a little closer. Basically, what happens is you get this thing called screen tearing, where when you move your mouse, especially from side to side, horizontally or sometimes vertically, you see the screen kind of like tear in certain places, where it kind of like stays still for a second and just like a piece, and then it kind of like snaps back together. And sometimes this can be incredibly distracting in certain machines. I'm not necessarily sure how it works, because it really varies on your computer, on your settings, on everything. But in some machines, if you turn VSync off, the tearing can almost be too much, to the point where it's like unplayable. Like you might as well leave it on and play with the input lag. The problem with VSync is that to synchronize both your graphics card and your monitor, it introduces a huge amount of input lag, because it does extra processing. It's like an extra processing step before the thing comes out. But basically, if you
creates more time.
Yeah, exactly. If you turn it off, you're not doing this processing anymore, so the input lag is greatly reduced at the cost of maybe having some screen staring. But here's the thing.
A little bit of a visual difference.
I really think that the higher FPSs that you can get, the less noticeable screen tearing is. And right now I'm playing with it off, and I can barely tell. Like I don't experience any screen tearing at all. And I think once you go into even higher refresh monitors, like 144, especially if your graphics card can handle it, this becomes even less apparent. And then if you go even higher than that into like the real super awesome gaming monitors, I think at that point you get G-Sync. I think that's what it's called. Don't quote me on it. I'm not like super informed into all this, but
let's move on. We don't want to belabor this point a little too much.
Yeah, anyway, this is a great way to reduce your input lag. So turn off your VSync and like check it out. See how it feels.
Just do it, as Shia LaBeouf would say. Just do it. All right, so we have advanced settings. So these are mostly for personal preference and what your computer can handle. So your game will vary on a lot of these things. So just check your video card under the advanced settings. Watch the Tempo Storm guide. There's a lot of like extra elements that you can reduce, like reflections and stuff like that. But as a whole, if you turn all of this stuff on low, even if you have a monitor and a graphics card and a processor and everything that works, and you turn all these advanced settings on low or on medium, you will greatly reduce the input lag as a whole. This is kind of like big broad brush statements, but there are a few things that are completely unaffected individually that you can go check this video out from Tempo Storm. I want to make sure that we don't basically carbon copy what he's saying, because I want you to go watch it. So yeah, at large, that's the general rule of thumb, but there are some things that are completely unaffected by your graphics card, or if they are affected, it's in a very, very low amount, and it doesn't matter in the long run.
Yeah. The
And
last
the
thing I
last thing that you
wanna.
want to do.
Oh, sorry. Finish it off.
No, go ahead. I was just gonna transition it all the way over to you. So the last thing, we're gonna give it to you.
Cool. Last thing I was gonna say about the video, there is a way to check your input lag, or like the response time that between when you do an action and when the server sends it back and it kind of like appears on your screen. If you go in the game, and when I mean in the game, I mean literally in the game. You have to be like in the training room or in an actual literal Overwatch game, not just in the main menu or in the character selection. You have to jump into an actual game. I don't know why you can't do it on the menu, but it's kind of annoying. But if you're there, you can press Control Shift N, or if you're in a Mac, I guess that's Command Shift N, and then basically it pulls up this little thing called the network graph, and it looks like a bunch of like weird settings. It almost looks like you broke your game if you've never pulled this up. Don't panic. It's just this little graph that gives you stats.
It's like Athena took over your computer.
Yeah, exactly. It's a bunch of like stats basically. But at the very top, there are numbers in gray, and they stand for your sim or your simulation. Is basically like an estimate of how long it took the client to measure your input and send it back, and for you to see it. It basically gives you the minimum, the average, and the highest number. There are three little numbers up there. So the first line in gray, that's the sim. If you look at the third number, that third number is going to give you a number in milliseconds. You want to have that usually below 10. If it's anything above 10, you're playing with a little more input lag that you might want to have. You want to play with your settings and then check there. If it's below 10, you're doing good. If you have something like 40 or something like that, you have huge input lag, and you should definitely check it out. Because if you're playing with 40 and you actually are able to get it below 10, you will notice a difference and you will thank me. If you're playing with something more like 12, 17, it's still not like as optimal as you could get it, but it's a little more marginal. Yeah, and if you're playing with something below 10, it's almost impossible for you as a human being to even notice this. Anything below 5 is completely indistinguishable from instant speed. So there you go.
Okay, the last part about visuals, this is not to do with input lag. So I wanted to say this as maybe a last part of video, but kind of separate from video. It's under the video settings, but it doesn't reduce input lag. It's called gamma correction, contrast, and brightness. You'll see those little sliders. Okay, I think the default puts all of them right in the middle. But if you actually increase the total gamma by a little and then reduce the brightness down a little and leave the contrast alone, you will see that the game becomes a little bit less, I think he said less dynamic and more flat, which means all of the palettes and stuff will become more of the same brightness level because the contrast is still remaining on the same, and the dark spots become brighter, and you lower the brightness down of the overall screen, making it a little bit easier on your eyes to find detailed pieces to the map. So he said basically just to make it look like a forward slash shape, and you can kind of tweak it as needed, but this will make it easier for you to see visually some other things. Again, you have to tweak this to taste, but at large, this is the better, more superior in more of a subjective sense settings for gamma correction and brightness.
Yeah, especially with
now
color.
Let's move into some
I would say
sound.
that's like the most subjective one, since everyone has different screens and different color calibrations.
Especially if you're colorblind, it could be very different for you.
You might want to play with that and the brightness to do something that you're comfortable with. And it's hard to give you like one that is like, this is the right way to do it, especially because every setup, it really is different with the color stuff.
Yeah, so just be careful, because this guy, again, the guy from Tempo Storm, is really, really smart, but also highly competitive and very opinionated. So just keep that in mind, right? So then we go to sounds. I believe when we had Skyline on our episode with him about Oasis, he mentioned the importance of sound effects. He also has put in a video, 1 or 2 videos out about the importance of sound in the game. So basically, what you want to do as a quick run through is you basically want to turn the music off if you're okay with that, or at least low, And then your in-game voice volume. In-game voice is the sound that the bots make when they scream when you shoot them, or that Tracer makes when she says, "Gotcha," when she hits you with the mine, or "Rip tire, ready to roll." You know, those type of things. Those are in-game voice volumes. You want those to be higher than sound effects, because sound effects are literally just the gunshots, the explosions, the laser beams, the Zaryas, like all of those little like effect sounds. You want to have the in-game voice higher because those are your audio cues to know what is actually happening. Ultimate announcements, death timers, I need healing with those Genjis that will not leave your Anas alone, those type of things, okay? And then the last thing you can do is you can change the voice chat volume, which is your team chatter, and you want to turn that up so you can hear your friends in your voice chat and what the calls are. There's a really cool feature in the game called Atmos Surround Sound, but what Atmos will do is it's supposed to, it's in design space, is supposed to make the sounds directional and more clear as far as where the direction is coming from, up above, down below, to the right at like 60 degrees from your current position, etc. Like, it's supposed to be very accurate for direction, but actually reduces the overall sound quality, and I guess it reduces the radius of volume where your player model is, supposedly.
I have
So if you turn
experimented with the
Atmos,
sound a little bit. The Atmos is cool.
Okay.
Like the feeling
I've
that you
tried
get
both as
of
well.
like direction is really nice. It really trippy how you can actually tell direction from it a lot more clear, especially diagonally and stuff like that.
Right.
But I agree with you. The sound quality greatly diminishes when you put it on, and some of the sounds become a little harder to discern from one another because the quality is a little lower. So at that point, I much better sacrifice the
Direction for quality.
precision for quality. Yeah.
So
because you can still tell when it's
I'll
right or
mention this
left
too.
or back.
I'll mention this too. I've been playing with Atmos since launch. Since they put this in the game, I've been playing with Atmos. I turned it off about 3 to 5 weeks ago. And I'm telling you what, I can hear a Reaper on Route 66 like an entire point away when he's above me in a building. Like, I can hear his footsteps with this on.
And it's a
if
huge advantage.
you turn your volume in-game
in
voice and sound effects up, and you have editing headphones or just over-the-ear headphones and noise canceling, you can hear anything, and it is crystal clear. And as long as you have general direction, at least in a 360-degree section instead of a spherical section like Atmos is supposed to claim, the quality and the distance that you can hear is by far more valuable than specific direction, because you just need to know relative direction. If you can't see something visually in that direction when you turn your camera, then they're above or below. Like, you have a pretty easy way to figure that out. So eventually it'll get there for accuracy. All right, so let's move on to the last category, which is controls. This is by far the most hotly debated, most min-maxed section, because it has to do with the mouse. Or for you console players, like we've brought on CS multiple times, is what you do with your sensitivity on your thumbsticks and what your key bindings are. And then obviously the crosshairs, which goes over with both. Okay? So I know I've been talking a lot, but I promise when we get over to team building right after this, Andres will be taking the reins mostly on that one. Okay? So
no, you go for it.
We have controls. All right. So we have controls of the mouse. So there's a general rule of thumb when you have a mouse. I've done a ton of research on this, by the way. This is like the one thing on Overwatch I feel like I actually know what I'm talking about. So if you have any mouse pad, you can have a big one, you can have the long one, the speed mat, Goliath mouse pad with the Overwatch symbol. You can have a larger one, a medium size, or a regular desktop size. Okay. When you play any shooting game, you need to have your mouse start at the center of the screen, and you put the mouse all the way at the far left or far right of your mouse pad. And then you drag your mouse completely horizontally the opposite direction. So if I put my mouse on the left side of the mouse pad here, I drag it complete straight line all the way horizontally to the right side, And by the time I reach the edge of mat to the edge of mat, I should have performed a 360-degree turn in game. So if I'm looking at a bot in the training range and I go from left to right, from the edge to edge of my mouse pad, I should be able to look at the robot again by the time I get to the other side. So that is the number one most important thing, is mouse pad. You need to have a mouse pad that is the correct size for you to do that. Now, a lot of pro players would like to do a setting that is somewhere around 800 DPI or 1600 with an in-game mouse setting at about 4 or with 800 DPI, or about 2 with 1600 DPI. That is the exact same setting. It just depends on how you're changing it, okay? So I'll get to that in a second. But a lot of people will play with an oversized mouse pad or a long mouse pad, a speed pad, in order to get this kind of movement. It gives you a finer tune. So a lot of players, when they have issues with aiming, will always run to the mouse. So you need to make sure, I would recommend that you get a larger mouse pad. You can get one for about $16 for a really, really good price, and super high quality stuff from Corsair. You can spend a little bit more on the Goliath Razor one. They have the sweet Overwatch logo if you really prefer that. But anyways, I have a really large Hearthstone one right here. I've linked it a few times in our Discord and in photos. It's an extra large mouse pad, and it works fine. And I run, we'll say what we're running. So I'm running 1600 DP at 2.5 in-game sensitivity. Andres, what are you running?
I think I'm at 1600 too, with like 3.5. I think I'm running.
Okay. And
So
I don't
close.
play DPS for what it's worth. Much. I don't play much DPS. So, all right. So, anyways, why DPI is important? Okay. So, in game, there is a pixel skipping thing. So basically, pixel skipping. Andres, do you want to actually just take a quick second and explain what pixel skipping is, and
Sure.
then I'll just mention how to avoid it.
Pixel skipping, it's really this small little detail. It's mostly unnoticeable by many, but it can make sometimes a little bit of a difference, especially where you're taking very fine aims like Widowmaker or McCree, especially at a big distance. Basically what it means is when you're dragging your mouse across the screen, sometimes for some reason, depending on your settings, it will skip a pixel, meaning like literally instead of going your cursor going a straight line from right to left, it goes from right, starts going, and then it skips a small little segment in the line and then kind of like keeps going. And this can be really detrimental, because if the enemy character just happens to be in that little skip, then you have just missed your shot for no reason at all, even though you should have been able to take the shot. So again, a small little increase in your
very minor
continuity, very minor. This is not gonna make you a pro from night to day, but if you're trying to get your system as consistent as possible, you should look into this too.
The reason people want to avoid pixel skipping, especially at the top level, maybe not so much if you're running and casually between bronze to diamond and you're just trying to goof around and enjoy the game from time to time, then pixel skipping doesn't really matter to you. But if it's something you want to avoid to build muscle memory and not lose that little margin, then pixel skipping needs to be done at large. A lot of you guys will be running a 1080p monitor. So a monitor at 1080, you want to adjust your in-game sensitivity to 4 or less. So if your in-game sensitivity is not less than 4, then you are subject to pixel skipping on a monitor that is set for 1080. Now, there's a specific thing. If you have a different, like 4K monitor or 2K monitor or whatever, I'll put a link in our Google Drive or on the website that you guys can click to see what settings you need to have it set for. It's a little like calculator, okay?
I think the general rule of thumb is higher DPI and low sensitivity tend to give you the lowest amount of pixel skipping, just as a general rule of thumb.
Yes. So if you, that's the general rule of thumb. So let's back up to DPI just real fast, and then we'll close this section. So the general 4 DPI that you want to float between is going to be 400, 800, 1600, and 3200. And the reason I list those 4 is every Zowie mouse that I have looked at purchasing, I think might even be all Zowie mice, only have those 4 settings. 400, 800, 1600, 3200. It's literally double, 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 double each time. So if you can see it that way, then that means whatever settings you have currently under any of those, you should try to get it as close to 400, 800, 1600, 3200 as you can. Because then if you want to avoid pixel skipping or change your settings, you can increase by 1 notch on your computer or your mouse from 400 to 800, for example. And then as you increase your DPI, then you cut in half the in-game sensitivity. So if I have an in-game sensitivity of 2 at 800 and I go to 1600, I then need to change my sensitivity to 1 because I cut the 2 in half to 1 and I double my speed on the mouse. So effectively 1 at 1600 and 2 at 800 and 4 at 400 are all the exact same setting and should not feel any different, only if pixel skipping isn't occurring. So that's how you kind of can change it depending on what your current setup is, and why I always recommend people to try to set somewhere in the 400, 800, 1600, and 3200 DPI settings. Okay, last. Crosshairs. Crosshairs, this is totally up to you. A lot of people have said in their different videos, I've watched a lot of videos on this. Personally, I've tested out quite a bit of stuff, but a lot of people like to use dot or short crosshairs and used by most pros to reduce the amount of distraction elements and targets on the screen. And then they like to choose a color that is not used often on the screen to distinguish it from a target so that they can line it up. Mm-hmm. Typically, yellow and pink are great. Light blue is kind of the worst because light blue everywhere. They also have had varying opinions on green, I believe. I liked and still use green for the longest time. And then I just recently switched to yellow. And I've noticed a little uptick in accuracy by using a dot with Ana and yellow because it helps me kind of see it just a little bit better when I'm healing. Because green targets sometimes you'll see on your allies, and I don't like that. So I changed it to yellow and help. That's kind of the gist there.
Yeah,
there's kind of a mental tricking.
Yeah, the crosshair is really like a preference. I've seen people do good with all kinds of crosshairs. Yeah. Right now I'm using the short cross with the magenta color. And that's kind of been working pretty nicely. I was playing with the dot for the longest time, and I kind of just wanted to change it up, especially when I was playing with McCree. The cross at least allows me to see the head through the cursor, and I think that that's been nice. But again, I think this is mostly a matter of personal preference. I don't think that really you're choose whatever you're comfortable with, basically.
Yeah. The only argument for why people choose short crosshairs over dot that I could find in the pro scene was they're like, well, short crosshairs just makes me want to hit them in the head. So
yeah, that's kind of what I did.
The dot's kind of just like I can kind of line it up if I'm playing Reaper, put a dot somewhere on their body, and I know I'm going to hit them. But if I have a crosshair and I'm playing Reaper, sometimes your subconscious will kick in and say, oh, this crosshair needs to go straight to their face so I can shoot them in the face and get a headshot because you're using a crosshair. So the cross lines up to the head. It's a weird mental thing. Sometimes we play tricks on ourselves. I don't know if this applies to you. It might be worth a shot. I don't know. Check it out. See if your accuracy improves. See what happens. But I definitely agree that the distinguishing of the colors has helped a lot, from white and black and yet blue basically being kind of the worst. But I know a lot of people that use the default white. White's fine. It's translucent, so whatever. All right, Andres, let's get into team building. We have gone long enough for a lot of other typically boring things, but we'll turn it over to you, and then we'll wrap this up. So talk about team building. I wrote down a few things here.
Yeah, this past few episodes, we've really been cutting it close with the time. I like keeping the episodes under an hour because, that way we can keep it very concise for you guys. But lately there's been so much information, and I don't want to cut it short this time. So let's just get into it real quick, and let's get this out of the way. So team building. Recently, Rob has started his own team. He's been working on it, and I have been playing with their team for about 4 months now. So it's been quite a good amount of time. Yeah, it's been a while. Yeah. And it's been quite a journey. I've learned a lot of things, and we definitely have some stuff to say. If maybe you're out there thinking about forming a 6-man, or if maybe you already have a 6-man that you play with your friends, the main thing here is that we're not talking about going pro or becoming hyper competitive and reaching top 1 in the ladder. This is not what we're talking about by team building. Overwatch is a game that is a 6 versus 6, and honestly is very enjoyable when you have a consistent crew of people that you can play with, you can get to know, and then you can do some awesome strategies that it would be impossible to do with randos. I think that is one of the most rewarding things once you can start making plays with your actual team. It's kind of like that same feeling of when you were playing like soccer or football or baseball, and your team is like gelling really well, and you guys like do awesome plays, and you kick the other team's ass, and you're like, yes, we rock. Or even when you're defeated, like in defeat, it's just nicer to have friends all around you where you can have each other's backs and improve together rather than like be defeated alone with a bunch of like random people that don't even care about you or might be flaming you and stuff. So there's a lot of advantages to having a team. So let's get into it. How do you make a team? The first part is
Talk to people.
definitely find the right people, and this might be one of the like biggest humps to starting a team. Like you actually have to go out there and find people that first want to play with you, to have a relatively similar schedule so you can actually play with them, and three, are willing to invest some time. Because let's be honest, if you are trying to build a team of 6 people, hopefully everyone is willing to invest a little bit of their time into the team, or if not, you're just never gonna find practice time, or never gonna get together, or just practices are not gonna be very fulfilling. You need to find people that are ready to make that commitment, and the commitment varies, right? Like I said, you might want to measure your goal before you go out and find your team. What is it that you want your team to do? Do you just want to do really good in the ladder and explore the ladder, being able to move up from your rank? Maybe you want as a team to get to platinum, or you want as a team to get to diamond, or maybe if you're already a diamond, you're like, okay, guys, let's make the push to grandmaster as a team, or let's just do it. You could also be thinking about forming a team to actually go to tournaments. There's a lot of online tournaments that you need to have a team to be able to sign up for them. Some of them you can sign up individually and you get thrown into teams that are made right there on the spot. But to be honest, the most well-known tournaments and the tournaments that people might be interested in participating, you have to have your own roster and bring it with you.
Yeah.
Or you might be one to scrim, just be playing other teams, get really good at Overwatch, really learn the game from like a team perspective, and you might be wanting to find a team to do that, or a little bit of everything. You might just be wanting to find a team to get together after work and just like blow off some steam and get together with a group of people that you enjoy, that you can joke around, and that you can try out some crazy strategies with Torbjorn and Symmetra on attack or something like that. That maybe if you try doing it in a pub, yeah, if you try doing it in a pub, maybe you could get flamed immediately and yelled at. But if you're with your team and everyone's down to fool around, that can be also very rewarding. So just a few of the reasons why you might want to form a 6 stack. My personal reason for forming a 6 stack a while ago was because I wanted to explore this game in a much more competitive fashion. Doing the podcast and also trying to improve as a player, I saw the need to be able to put myself in that situation and be able to get that experience firsthand, so I could actually talk about it and be involved with it, and hopefully like someday like maybe even make it a little more serious and have a very competitive team. That also requires a lot of time investment that maybe not everyone in our team can afford right now, or not everyone wants to make that commitment. But for now, we've been very concentrated on the ladder of trying to really find our way around it, try to get everyone above diamond that have a good team average. We're very close to achieving that goal. We just gotta get like 2 more guys through the hump, but they were both like really close up there. And yeah, those were kind of like my main purposes. How about you? I know that you're starting a new team, so it would be a good idea to kind of like know your objectives and
Yeah.
all that stuff.
So I know the first things that we had talked through, honestly, it was just kind of like I picked up a couple guys that were just online in the Discord. Both of them actually just happened to be patrons, but they were just like, hey, I want to hit diamond, or I want to hit plat, and then I want to hit diamond after that. And I was like, well, I've been trying to hit plat for 2 seasons, and I want to learn this hero, and that's my goals. And so we've made it through stack. We just play together very regularly. We have basically all 3 of us can play support. 2 of us main support, and the other one it's basically bus driver and Svor. Also, I'll throw their names a lot. Svor plays a ton. He's got over 100 hours in Ana. I'm approaching my 50th hour, I think, in total for Ana right now. And then bus driver has got like over 100 hours on Lucio and loves playing that little guy. So we basically run Lucio, Ana, and then Svor just does flex, can play like 1 or 2 tanks, and then hit scan. So it's been working out pretty well for us. Again, I've been sharing my results is almost exclusively with those guys. So I've been wanting to build a team. I was like, I got half of us here. Why don't we just try to get like three more people and practice a 6 stack like 2 to 3 times a week. So we're still trying. We got another guy that lined up. Infinite One has been changing his sleep schedule around to play Diva for us. So we have an off tank, and now we're running 4 stack. And then we got Crazy, who's been joining us on the weekends as needed, just doing an additional flex because he wants to learn something besides support. So he's been playing Pharah and Tracer and also other off tanks and even Reinhardt. So if you guys are interested in PMing me, we have crazy time frame schedule. This is like, if you're on Eastern time, this is basically about, I think, 5 a.m. to 9:30 a.m. It's kind of like when we're playing because I live in Japan. So that's just kind of how it works.
Yeah, you gotta make some sacrifices to play in a team sometimes.
That's honestly been the hardest thing, is trying to find people willing to get up and play at those times 2 days to 3 days a week. So if we can do that, that would be great. If we can have weekend warriors, that's fine. But I just like having at least 2 others with me when I'm going to ranked. And I've been playing a little bit with Boom on Mondays or Tuesdays, and sometimes on the weekends he'll join us as well because I just need a Reinhardt, and I've played a lot with him in the past. So honestly, when we were looking at stuff, I echo everything that Andres said. First thing I'll say that's a little different is I actually prefer finding the right people before I start finding the right roles. Obviously, once you get to a certain point, you need to find specific roles, which is where we're at now that we have 4 out of the 6. But I feel like finding the right people that jive together personality-wise is more important when you're playing at a lower tier level than when you're trying to play at like Master, Grandmaster level. Because you can kind of set aside your differences at that level and just play. Whereas at our level, it's like we're going to be playing a lot of games together, and I want people to make sure that they don't bite each other's heads off in like an hour.
So. That's very important. We should touch on that a little bit, but you need to have a little chemistry with the people that you find. It's usually not enough to just go out and find anyone who can DPS or anyone who can heal and just bring him on. When you're finding people, especially if you're trying to find a team for the long run, right? Not just like one that will play that week and then disband immediately because people couldn't stand each other. But if you want a team that's gonna, be there for a little bit, which hopefully is the objective, because when you want to form a 6 stack, my idea is that you're there for the long run, right? You just don't want to like do all that effort and then everyone just bail on you after a couple of weeks. You want people that, one, understand that it's going to take some time to bring the team together. Sometimes you can have spurs of winningness and like really advance a lot as a team, but there's also going to be times where you're going to be losing and you're not going to be winning all the time. You need to find people that are ready to accept this and people who want to work as a team to improve each other and who are not going to be going at each other's throats when things just don't go their way, for sure. Cool. So, but let's say you do find these people. Let's say you do your research, and honestly, this is kind of like an ongoing process. Like you don't have to find everyone right away. It can be kind of like a weeding process, right? Like where you get like the first 6 initial people, then one of them really doesn't work out and he maybe has to go, then you bring in somebody else and that he blends in really well. Later on you might be like, hey, you're actually not working out that well for a team. You might have to make a decision and choose them out. So sometimes it's an ongoing process of iteration there. But let's say you find your players, what's next? So like you said, Rob, you want to definitely select some player roles. Like, it's cool if everyone in your team can play every role and stuff, but to be honest, the reason why you form a six stack is because you want to specialize. You want to be able to exploit every hero to their full potential. And honestly, the best way to do it is if every person specializes on a few heroes that are different from everyone else's. It's cool that you can have a player that, or two players that can play Soldier 76, or a couple players that can play Diva, just in case one of the players is forced to play something else, somebody else can take that spot. But in general, you do want to have like a guy that specializes in being like the main healer, then one guy that specializes in being your main DPS, one guy that specializes in being your main tank, and then maybe have a couple flex players that are more specialized in kind of adapting to the situation and your team needs and being able to support your other players. And this is also important because everyone has their own playstyle, and you need to get to know this playstyle. And if you're constantly swapping roles and stuff, your team is just gonna have very little cohesiveness, and you're always gonna be trying to like guess what people are trying to do. Obviously, the more you play, maybe the better that gets. But if you just assign like certain roles to your members, it's just a lot easier to get that cohesion a lot faster, and your team might gel a little better. I know that for our team, we have a dedicated Reinhardt and we have a dedicated main healer or Anna. And then our second healer usually swaps between Lucio and Mercy. And we have two flex players who usually swap between off tanks and DPS, depending on what we need.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about flex real quick. So obviously we want to choose people that are kind of like specific roles, or maybe just like 2 to 3 specific heroes they play. So for me, I am the pinch Ana player. That's my thing. Lucio is Bus's thing. And at large, 4 plays McCree and Soldier almost every time, with only exceptions of picking up Zarya and Torb for specific scenarios. But that's kind of like the core of the team that we built around. Then we picked up Infinite One, who plays Diva. And the next 2 people that we have, like including Crazy, but not including Crazy. Crazy is basically a very versatile flex pick. But at the same time, I wanted Sfor to be team captain instead of myself, because I want to do more of the time with the podcast and kind of co-captain that, and maybe work on the scheduling with them, at least until I hit plat. So what we're doing is we're trying to get 2 to 3 flex players, at least initially. And then maybe if we can find somebody, I would like to have basically our off tank and main tank be primarily on 1 to 2 heroes all the time. I want somebody to be a Diva main with another off tank like Zarya or Winston as their secondary. And then I want somebody on Reinhardt primary, and then maybe Diva, Winston, Zarya as a secondary, or Roadhog, for example. And I would like to have at least 2, but currently Sfor is good enough at his level to kind of carry a bunch of people to Diamond, I think. But again, we'll have to adjust this as we go, but we're kind of broadening our scope based off a time zone at this point. And then the last couple things here is just basically, we mentioned nonverbal chemistry. This is really hard. This is just chemistry that just makes stuff happen. And sometimes there's no shot calls. There's literally just an adjustment that happens, and the game is flipped, good or bad, and that nonverbal chemistry needs to be there. And then team leadership is also important, but is also important that everyone has a say. I know that Andres and I both utilize that a lot with the teams that we play with. Our opinions are not law. They're never law. It's always informed by other people's opinions and how the game is run. And then last, this is the most important thing for me. They go together, which is patience and playing in the long run as your main goal. And in order to do that main goal, I like to do this little thing called debriefing. So the captains and the captain and co-captain basically decide when they want to call it a night. The other people can usually inform that decision by saying, I'm not feeling it, or I think I need to go soon, and basically make it happen. But debriefing and VOD reviewing after the whole night as kind of just a recap of what's happened. How did we do? What do we feel? Everyone takes a quick second to say their input for the whole night, not just individual games. and it usually takes about 10 minutes, and then that's the night. So that helps you with kind of finding your center and reconnecting with your team and making sure it's not about losing, gaining SR. It's not about, winning the match. It's about progressing as a team, and progression can look in different ways all the time.
Absolutely.
But yeah, that's kind of our goals.
Yeah,
Andres, do you have anything to add before we make final announcements here?
Just to piggyback on what you said, I think that is really important. Really, like the patience and like playing for the long run. Just be really patient with your other members, especially when you're first starting out on a 6 stack. Some people don't unlock their full potential after some time in the team and being able to feel comfortable and really nailing down their objective and gelling and seeing what everyone else has to do. I must say that there's been very rough times with our team where we've lost a lot, and I feel like if it had been another group of people, they would have disbanded so fast after some of the sessions that we had. I'd been like, this is not working out.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just gonna go find something better somewhere else. But the truth is that because we've stuck together through some of those like harder sessions and harder times where or really like our commitment was put to test on here, and we were like, guys, let's just watch a review. Let's just watch one of our VODs and see what we did wrong. Really try to get to the bottom of this. And I'm not gonna say that everything has been like rainbows and ponies and stuff. Like sometimes it does get rough, and like we have like yelled at each other, and like sometimes we've been like, what are you guys doing? And like the tension can get like at a real high. But at the end of the day, you have to like put yourself back and be like, hey, this is just a game, and these guys are here to have fun with me and improve together. And I think that's like the main thing that matters. And if you're able to stick together through those things, you will inevitably get better as a team and learn from each other. And like sometimes those really disastrous sessions where everything seems to go wrong, those are the ones that sometimes teach you the most, because then like you really know, like we really can't do that again because bad things will happen. And you pick yourself up. A couple of things just to finish it off is eventually with your team, you want to develop a lingo, a language, a communication pattern. I think as it comes with time, and it's a more advanced thing where you can communicate to your team a lot of information in very small amount of words. Shot calls like naming certain locations on the maps, or naming certain strategies, certain ways to engage, and be like, engage with strategy 1 through bridge or something like that. And then you've communicated a ton of information to your team in just like one sentence or one or two words. And this can really make a huge difference, especially when you're playing against other 6-stack teams, which are also coordinated. Being able to coordinate your team in a split second and everybody kind of like be on the same page right away, it's super, super strong. And it's definitely one of the perks that come with playing with the same dudes for a long time.
Or dudettes, if you are a girl.
Dudes and dudettes.
So let's wrap up the show, guys. I have the same announcement that I've posted the last 2 shows about our console 1v1 tournament happening on January 29th. Currently, it is the 26th in Japan time, Thursday night, or Thursday morning, very early, 12:50 a.m. But on Andres' end, it is not that. It is now the 25th. So yeah, we'll try to get this episode up right before the tournament goes live. So please, if you want to participate on Xbox, contact AbNerd for Xbox. Run it over to the Xbox channel in our Discord. Or if you want to play on PS4, find the admin CS in the PS4 channel. There's lots of details there. The details will be in the show notes on the website. And in Discord, if you have questions, just ask there. We got to get out of here real quick. Sadly, we don't have time for our email, but luckily, Cody Stark will have his other 2 little pieces answered. I answered one of them via email, and the other answer was actually part of the day's show's settings for mouse settings is his question. We have 3 new iTunes reviews this week. We have one from Nans84 and one from Optic Hitler 420. Hashtag blaze it, I guess. Both of you guys are from USA. Thanks for the 5-star reviews. And then we also have one of our Discord people, was able to get their iTunes review in through Germany. So special thanks to Bio Shrimp. She says one little highlight. She says most amazing about the show is their friendly community surrounding it. Best wishes from Berlin. So thank you guys for your iTunes reviews this week. Really, really appreciate it.
Absolutely.
And again, to keep up with a normal theme of giving you less options at the end of the show and making sure the show just finishes on a high note at large, you guys can find us, our Discord community. You go online, not in the Discord app, go online, type in discord.me/OmnicLab. And then you can find our community there. That's where you can group up, find us. You can inquire about potentially joining my team. Please, Reinhardt Mains, DM me. I want a Reinhardt on my team in my time zone, if possible. You can also email the show at omniclabpodcast@gmail.com for more questions and feedback. If you've already left your iTunes review or subscribed on Patreon, just give us an email. And then you can check out anything that you want to find on links and just go to the website, omniclab.com. Andres, that's it for the show. Where can people find you?
If you want to find me personally, you can look me up on Twitter at iPlayGames. Follow all the projects that I'm doing. Reach out to me if you want to ask anything about the show, about production, about all of that stuff. And then you can also catch me streaming right here in this same channel, Twitch TV/OmnicLab. I want to be streaming a little bit of the Brawl and hopefully some team practices at the end of the week. So stay tuned for that.
Sweet. You guys, if you want to find me, I'm on Twitter and Instagram. Recently, we were able to swap some Instagrams with some listeners and patrons this week for a lot of fun, just showing them what Japan looks like. You can find me at Not Rob there. You can also find some of my plays. I uploaded 10 new VODs this week. Holy crap. 10 new VODs on plays.com, plays.tv/u/NotRob. And we just had one of my co-hosts leave. Very sad on Hearthstone podcast, Velen's Chosen. You can find that at velenschosen.com. But this week, we are doing a little spoiler. If you guys like Hearthstone, we have not made an official announcement because we just agreed on it today. So we are doing a Legendaries crafting guide for you budget players. We're going to highlight what legendaries you want for specific decks, and we're going to be introducing our brand new co-host this week. So this weekend, that episode will go up for Velen's Chosen. Thank you guys for tuning in on episode number 38, suffering through some of the Chinese lore for the skins. Because I love to nerd out about that sort of thing, and culture, obviously, as well as our game settings, dross. Hopefully that was beneficial and not too boring for you. And the team building section. Thanks again, guys. We really appreciate you listening to the show for episode 38.
Absolutely. A couple of things before we close out the show. I'm going to leave you guys with a couple of recordings of my teammates. I went around and did a minute interview of them, how they felt about playing a 6-stack, their favorite thing, their least favorite thing. So if you guys are interested in checking that out, stay tuned. This will be going into the iTunes show, not the live show. And we also have a little update of console settings from CS. We'll be attaching that on our iTunes show as well. We'll tack it in there. So stay tuned for those. With that being said, catch you guys later.
Adios. And if you guys are on YouTube, we have a like button. It helps us out, get more exposure. You can hit the like button and you can share it. Thanks so much for tuning in.
Thanks for everyone in the chat who came in. Super Vale. I'm sorry I couldn't talk to you more. Sometimes I really want to talk to you guys more in the chat, but because we're also recording for our live show, I can't derail too much. So I try to sneak in once if I can.